There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when something shifts quietly, softly, almost unnoticeably. There is no announcement, no sign in the sky, no loud confirmation that your season has changed. Yet your spirit knows it before anything else does. It feels like a gentle stirring deep within, a subtle awareness that the atmosphere around you is no longer the same. For years, you prayed, fasted, waited, and wondered when things would finally turn. You endured seasons where nothing grew, nothing moved, and nothing made sense. You watched others rise while you remained in the same place, questioning if God had forgotten your name. But chosen ones are never forgotten. They are hidden until the right moment. And then it happens not dramatically, but silently. The blessing begins to arrive like dawn breaking over the horizon. There is no explosion of light at first, only a soft glow touching one corner of your life. A small opportunity, a sudden open door, a conversation that leads somewhere unexpected, a solution that appears out of nowhere. That is how divine wealth arrives, not as a storm, but as sunrise. You start noticing that things resisting you suddenly cooperate. Doors that were locked begin to open with ease. Paths that were blocked straighten before your eyes. It feels almost surreal, like life is quietly rearranging itself on your behalf. And it is because heaven moves in silence before it moves in power. The chosen ones don't receive blessings with noise. God doesn't need an audience to begin a miracle. He doesn't display the seed. He displays the harvest. So when wealth begins to flow into your life, it comes softly, like a whisper that only your spirit can hear. You sense it before you see it. You feel it before you touch it. You know something is shifting, but you can't yet explain how. That is the silent arrival of blessing. It is God's way of reminding you, I have been working behind the scenes long before you saw the evidence. And before the world ever notices what's happening, heaven makes sure you notice first. When the blessing finally begins to take shape, when the answers you prayed for start showing up in subtle, graceful ways, God often gives a command that surprises the chosen ones. Move quietly. It feels counterintuitive at first. After years of struggle, after seasons of lack, after tears that nobody saw, the human instinct is to celebrate loudly, to tell the world, God did it, to prove every doubter wrong, to show those who judged your journey that heaven never abandoned you. But divine wealth follows a different rhythm. What God births in silence must first be protected in silence. The breakthrough you've been waiting for, the opportunity, the open door, the financial shift arrives fragile, like a newborn seed. It is powerful, but it is not yet public. It is real, but not yet ready for exposure. And so God's first instruction isn't announce it, but guard it, because not everyone around you is equipped to see your rise. Some people can handle your struggle, but not your elevation. Some cheered for your pain, but will envy your prosperity. And others, unintentionally or intentionally, can speak doubt, fear, or confusion into a blessing that is still taking form. God shields what is sacred by wrapping it in silence. When He opens financial doors, He doesn't bring a crowd to witness the beginning. He allows you to step through quietly so your spirit can stay focused. He wants your heart clear, your mind settled, and your intentions purified before the blessing becomes visible to others. Moving quietly is not about fear. It's about formation. It's about receiving instructions before receiving attention. It's about learning to manage the blessing before announcing it. In the quiet, God teaches you where to walk, what to build, who to trust, and what to release. He reveals strategies you couldn't hear when life was noisy. He aligns your spirit so your blessing doesn't break you. Because the chosen ones don't rise through exposure. They rise through obedience. And heaven knows, a blessing protected in silence becomes a blessing established in strength. Before the blessing arrived, before doors began to open, and opportunities started finding you. There was a long, quiet season that felt confusing, heavy, and lonely. It was the season where nothing seemed to move, but everything inside you was being rebuilt. This is the hidden training season, a period every chosen one must walk through before heaven can entrust them with true wealth. During that time, you carried the weight of questions you couldn't answer. People looked at your life and formed opinions without knowing the process God was taking you through. They saw delay and assumed defeat. They saw lack and assumed failure. They saw silence and assumed God wasn't with you. But what they interpreted as evidence against you was actually evidence of God's investment in you. The hidden training season is never punishment, it is preparation. It is God placing you in a private classroom where the lessons are not taught with words but with experience, where the curriculum is not about skills but about spirit, where the purpose is not to make you comfortable but capable. Every closed door was a test of humility. Every disappointment was a lesson in discernment. Every quiet night was a call to deepen your dependence on God. Every delay was sharpening your patience, your character, and your clarity. You were being shaped when nobody saw it. You were being strengthened when nobody clapped for you. You were being purified when nobody believed in you. God hid you in plain sight, because if He had elevated you before your spirit was ready, the blessing would have broken you. Instead, He refined you like gold, slowly, intentionally, silently. The training season taught you how to hear God without noise, how to trust Him without proof, and how to follow Him without explanation. It taught you resilience, it taught you silence, it taught you stewardship, and most importantly, it taught you identity. You had to learn that you were chosen when nothing in your life looked chosen. You had to believe you were called when nothing around you affirmed it. You had to carry faith in the dark long before you carried favor in the light. What others called failure was actually formation. What they saw as lack was camouflage. What they judged as stagnation was the soil where your roots were growing deep. God didn't just prepare a blessing for you, He prepared you for the blessing. And when the wealth finally begins to rise, it won't be a surprise to your spirit, because long before the blessing arrived publicly, the training happened privately. This is why the chosen ones rise strong, steady, and unshakable. They were forged in a hidden season only heaven witnessed. When God begins to release wealth into the hands of a chosen one, it is never just about money. It is never simply about comfort, luxury, or reward. Divine wealth is not handed out like a prize, it is entrusted like a mantle. It comes wrapped in responsibility, authority, and spiritual accountability. To the world, wealth is a symbol of success, but in the kingdom, it is a sign of assignment. This is why God takes His time before releasing abundance. He must refine the vessel before releasing the volume. He must strengthen the character before increasing the capacity. He must secure the heart before expanding the influence. Because the chosen ones are not just called to possess wealth, they are called to carry it. Wealth in God's hands is not decoration, it is deployment. When the chosen ones rise, their abundance carries purpose. Their resources aren't just for enjoyment, they are tools for kingdom transformation. God blesses them not so they can boast, but so they can build, not so they can shine, but so they can serve, not so they can elevate themselves, but so they can elevate others. This is why silence becomes the first test. God wants to know, can you handle increase without making it your identity? Can you hold favor without flaunting it? Can you manage wealth without worshipping it? Prosperity reveals the heart. Some people lose themselves when they gain everything. Chosen ones find themselves when they do. And the reason they find themselves is because they understand that wealth is spiritual. It is not just currency, it is covenant. It is not just profit, it is purpose. It is not just increase, it is influence. God doesn't pour wealth into hands that are unsubmitted. He pours it into hands that remain open, ready to give, ready to sow, ready to serve. When the chosen ones receive abundance, they don't say, "Look what I have done." They say, "God, show me what you want to do through me." This shift in posture is what protects the blessing from becoming a burden. Without this mindset, wealth becomes a trap. With this mindset, wealth becomes a weapon against poverty, against injustice, against generational curses, against the plans of darkness. You were not chosen to chase money. You were chosen to steward movement. Your wealth is not the climax of your story. It is the beginning of your assignment. It positions you to fund visions, support families, break cycles, and advance the purposes of heaven. This is why divine wealth feels different. It doesn't inflate the ego, it expands the mission. It doesn't make the chosen ones louder, it makes them wiser. It doesn't turn them into rulers of riches, it turns them into carriers of responsibility. When God gives you wealth, He is not just blessing you, He is trusting you. Every blessing God releases begins as a seed, powerful, full of potential, but fragile in its early stages. And just like a gardener does not announce a sprouting seed to the world, the chosen ones must learn to protect what God is growing before it becomes visible, because premature exposure doesn't strengthen a blessing, it endangers it. When wealth first enters your life, it does not arrive fully developed. It comes quietly, subtly, a little here and a little there. A door opens, a partnership appears, a creative idea begins to produce results. These are spiritual seedlings, glimpses of what is coming, but not yet ready to withstand the winds of envy, jealousy, or spiritual attack. This is why God teaches His chosen ones to move carefully in the early stages of increase. The seed is strong, but the environment may not be. Not everyone around you is equipped to see you win. Some people loved you more when you needed them. Some people feel secure only when you're struggling. Others celebrate you as long as you stay on their level. The moment your season shifts, the truth about people starts to surface. Your growth will expose their stagnation. Your elevation will reveal their intentions. Your blessing will test their loyalty. And God knows this. That's why He whispers, "Guard this. Don't announce it yet." Because the seed must grow roots before it grows branches. A blessing must stabilize before it becomes sustainable. If you reveal it too early, you give the enemy a target. If you hide it in wisdom, you give God room to develop it. Protecting the seed is not about secrecy, it's about stewardship. You don't tell everyone what God is doing. You nurture it. You don't explain your blessings, you protect them. You don't justify your progress, you cultivate it. The chosen ones understand that not every miracle is meant to be shared. Some blessings must grow in silence until they are strong enough to speak for themselves. When the fruit appears, it will be undeniable. But until then, the seed must remain covered. So guard your early wealth. Guard your early opportunities. Guard your early breakthroughs. Because what God is growing in you now may look small, but it carries the DNA of something unstoppable. If this word is speaking to your spirit, pause for a moment and declare your alignment. Comment, "I'm protecting my seed," if you're committed to guarding what God is growing in your life. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and stay connected, because your silent season is about to turn into a harvest that shocks every room you walk into. Heaven is preparing you. Don't miss the next revelation. When the blessing finally begins to show, when the opportunities multiply, the finances grow, and the things you once prayed for suddenly begin to manifest, God watches something far more important than your success: your posture. Because manifestation isn't the celebration phase, it's the examination phase. It is the moment heaven leans in to see what your heart will do now that your hands are full. For years, you prayed in private. You cried where no one could see. You stayed faithful when nothing was changing. Now things are moving. Now the blessing is visible. Now the harvest is appearing. And this is where many people fail, not in lack, but in abundance, because pride doesn't begin when you become wealthy. Pride begins when you forget who brought you there. God looks to see if your spirit remains low, even as your life rises. He watches whether you whisper gratitude or announce glory. He observes whether your success draws you closer to him or distracts you from him. The manifestation season reveals the true condition of the heart. Some people use their new blessing to prove a point, to show their worth, to silence doubters, to elevate themselves. But chosen ones move differently. They know that every blessing carries a fingerprint. They know that anything done without God collapses, but anything sustained by him becomes unshakable. So they choose humility, not as weakness, but as wisdom. Humility protects what pride destroys. When God begins to elevate you, the enemy will whisper, "Show them, post it, prove it, let everyone see you've made it." But God whispers something softer, something wiser. Stay grounded, stay grateful, stay close to me. Humility is not pretending you're not blessed. It's acknowledging that you didn't bless yourself. It's choosing reverence over recognition, devotion over display. The chosen ones understand that wealth is not the reward for faithfulness. It is the responsibility that follows it. And responsibility requires a heart aligned, not inflated. When the blessing appears, your character is tested more than your bank account. Because God is not simply looking at what you receive, he is looking at what you become. And here is the truth. A humble heart can hold what a proud spirit will drop. Before God ever allows your life to expand, he focuses on something far more important than visibility: stability. Growth without grounding is dangerous. Increase without depth is fragile. Elevation without foundation is temporary. That is why, for the chosen ones, God builds roots long before he reveals branches. You may have wondered why your breakthrough took so long, why doors didn't open sooner, or why your prayers seemed delayed. But in the kingdom, delay is rarely denial, it is development. God was not withholding your blessing, he was strengthening the structure that would hold it. A tree that grows too quickly becomes weak. A blessing that rises too fast becomes unstable. A life that expands before it deepens becomes easy to break. So God hides you, slows you, humbles you, and anchors you not to limit you, but to prepare you. In the seasons when nothing seemed to be happening, something was happening in you. Your patience was deepening. Your faith was thickening. Your discernment was sharpening. Your spirit was maturing. Those were your roots growing. Because God knows that storms come. Envy comes. Spiritual warfare comes. Responsibility comes. And if your inner life is not anchored, your outer life will not last. The chosen ones may be delayed, but they are never denied, because while others rush to display fruit, God prepares them to withstand wind. He grows them downward before he grows them upward. Your roots are the parts of you that no one sees. Your prayer life, your discipline, your humility, your gratitude, your character, your obedience. These unseen qualities determine the strength of your future branches, your wealth, influence, opportunities, and assignments. This is why God whispers, "Stay hidden a little longer." He wants your spirit settled before your blessings multiply. He wants your motives purified before your influence expands. He wants your identity secure before your elevation arrives. Because wide branches attract attention, but deep roots guarantee survival. When your prosperity finally manifests, people will only notice the branches. They will see the fruit, the success, the abundance. They will admire the visible. But heaven will celebrate the invisible, the deep, quiet work that prepared you. Those rooted in God don't fear storms, they outlast them. Those anchored in truth don't collapse, they strengthen. Those grounded in humility don't get shaken, they rise. So if God took time to grow your roots, It's because your branches are destined to spread far, reach high, and carry weight. The deeper the roots, the greater the destiny. When God begins to shift your life into a new realm of blessing, He often draws you into a season of stillness, not to isolate you, but to instruct you. Quietness is not emptiness, it is spiritual clarity. It is the space where heaven speaks without interruption, and where the chosen ones learn to hear what the noise of life once drowned out. In times of quiet, God reveals the steps that come after the blessing, where to go, what to build, who to trust, and what to release. These instructions are not shouted, they are whispered, and only a quiet spirit can hear them. When wealth or elevation first appears, excitement can easily cloud discernment. Opportunities can distract instead of direct. Supporters and strangers alike may pull on your time, your energy, and your attention. The enemy knows he may not be able to stop your blessing, but he can try to sabotage its management. That is why God calls you close. He draws you into the secret place. He invites you into silence so He can speak without competition. Even Jesus, after miracles, crowds, and breakthroughs, always withdrew to pray. He understood that applause can confuse assignment, and affirmation can drown out instruction. The chosen ones must learn the same discipline, because wealth without wisdom becomes waste. Increase without instruction becomes chaos. Prosperity without prayer becomes vulnerability. In quietness, God reveals strategy. He shows you where to sow your resources. He highlights relationships that will nourish you. He exposes connections that will drain you. He illuminates paths you must walk and paths you must avoid. Many people will call it intuition, luck, or instinct, but chosen ones know the truth. It is revelation. In the quiet, God aligns your heart so you don't mismanage what He is bringing. He steadies your spirit so old fears don't sabotage new blessings. He calms your mind so clarity can flow unhindered. Quietness is not inactivity. It is divine preparation. The world may not understand why you step back in the moment of increase, but heaven understands perfectly. Before you move publicly, you must hear God privately. When prosperity begins to manifest in the life of a chosen one, the spiritual atmosphere around them shifts just as much as their physical circumstances. Blessings do not merely attract gratitude, they attract attention, and attention is not always harmless. This is why discernment becomes one of the most crucial spiritual tools once wealth enters your world. The enemy knows he cannot stop what God has released, but he will attempt to distract, distort, and drain, not through lack, but through access. Not through attack, but through agreement. Not through obstacles, but through opportunities that look divine, but are designed to detour you. This is where many people fall, not because they weren't blessed, but because they weren't discerning. As your prosperity grows, new faces will appear. Some genuinely celebrate you. Some silently envy you. Some want to walk with you. Others want to use you. And some simply want proximity to your blessing, not relationship with you or reverence for God. Discernment is the filter that protects your future from the wrong hands. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every opportunity is kingdom-aligned. Not every connection is covenant, it might be camouflage. And not every person who claps for you is committed to your calling. This is why God often instructs His chosen ones to move quietly. Silence gives you space to observe. Observation gives insight. Insight reveals intentions. Once prosperity arrives, you must watch how people respond, not to judge them, but to discern them. Those who celebrated you only in struggle may resent you in success. Those who ignored you in lack may pursue you in abundance. Those who doubted you in the dark may suddenly want partnership in the light. But discernment teaches you this truth. Proximity must be earned. Access must be stewarded. God is not elevating you so you can drag the wrong spirits into your next season. He is elevating you so you can walk with wisdom, purity, and clarity. Discernment also protects you from yourself, from emotional decisions, impulsive spending, or misaligned investments. It whispers, "Wait," when excitement says, "Move." It warns, "Pay attention," when flattery says, "Trust them." Prosperity requires a sharpened mind and a guarded spirit, because the enemy doesn't want your money, he wants your focus. If he can distract you, he can drain you. If he can drain you, he can disarm you. Discernment keeps your hands full and your heart safe. When prosperity arrives, protect it with prayer, guard it with wisdom, and surround it with people who can handle your rise without losing their integrity. One of the greatest dangers that comes with divine prosperity is not greed, pride, or extravagance, it is forgetfulness. The chosen ones must understand that spiritual stability is built not on wealth, but on memory. It is the memory of where God brought you from that keeps your heart grounded when life begins to rise. Gratitude becomes the anchor that keeps your spirit steady in seasons of abundance. When money begins to flow, when opportunities expand, when blessings multiply, it becomes easy, sometimes subtly, almost unconsciously, to forget the nights you cried out for breakthrough, to forget the days when there was barely enough, to forget the prayers you whispered in desperation, to forget the faith that carried you through seasons of lack. But heaven remembers every tear. Heaven remembers every seed. Heaven remembers every sacrifice. And heaven expects you to remember too. Memory cultivates humility. Humility cultivates gratitude. Gratitude cultivates stability. Your gratitude is not just an emotional response, it is a spiritual discipline. It keeps your heart from rising higher than your spirit. It keeps your success from becoming your identity. It keeps your wealth from becoming your master. Because prosperity without gratitude is just a slower form of spiritual collapse. The chosen ones carry their memories like markers of God's faithfulness. They don't forget the nights God sustained them. They don't erase the seasons where they survived on grace alone. These memories keep arrogance away and keep awareness alive. And gratitude, real gratitude, changes how you handle your blessing. It turns every dollar into worship. It turns every opportunity into service. It turns every success into testimony. Your spiritual stability is not measured by how high you rise, but by how deeply you remain rooted in God while rising. If your wealth pulls you away from prayer, it's not wealth, it's a warning. But if it draws you closer, if it deepens your reverence, if it expands your generosity, then your prosperity is aligned with heaven. Remember this: the safest wealthy person is the grateful one, because gratitude reminds the chosen ones that the blessing is temporary, but the blesser is eternal. There was once a woman whose life did not look chosen, favored, or destined by any earthly standard. She wasn't born into wealth. She didn't have connections. She didn't have a perfect plan. What she had was something far more rare: faithfulness without applause. For years she prayed not for luxury, but simply for stability. She wanted enough to live, enough to breathe, enough to stop surviving and start becoming. Every bill was a battle. Every month was a mountain. Every breakthrough felt just out of reach. Yet in all her hardship, she carried something sacred, a quiet trust in God that refused to die. She gave when she barely had enough. She helped others while she was hurting. She stayed kind in seasons when bitterness would have been easier. She sowed seeds that no one saw, cried tears no one noticed, and fought battles no one understood. Heaven saw everything, and then one day, just like that, her season shifted. There was no warning, no spotlight, no announcement, but suddenly doors began to open that had been locked for years. Clients started calling. Business began to increase. Opportunities flowed from directions she didn't even expect. Her bank account changed, but her spirit remained the same. Because before the blessing arrived, God whispered one instruction into her heart: when it comes, Stay quiet. And she obeyed. She didn't run to social media to boast. She didn't try to prove anything to those who doubted her. She didn't announce her rise to people who once ignored her pain. Instead, she did something far more powerful. She built in silence. She invested wisely. She saved intentionally. She helped others discreetly. She funded dreams that weren't even her own. Her generosity became her fingerprint. Her consistency became her fragrance. Her humility became her protection. The same people who overlooked her began to describe her success as mysterious. But it wasn't mystery. It was mastery. The mastery of obedience, discipline, and quiet elevation. What they didn't know was that while they were sleeping, she was growing. While they were watching others, God was watching her. While they dismissed her beginnings, heaven was preparing her expansion. And because she guarded her blessing in its early stages, her blessing grew strong roots. Because she protected her spirit while ascending, her elevation became unshakable. Because she chose obedience over spotlight, God trusted her with influence beyond her imagination. Years later, she became the kind of woman others looked up to, the one whose life radiated grace, whose wealth carried purpose, and whose silence spoke louder than the noise of those who once doubted her. Her rise wasn't loud, it was holy. Her wealth wasn't flaunted, it was stewarded. Her success wasn't rushed, it was refined. And in the end, she discovered the secret every chosen one eventually learns. When you rise in silence, God makes sure your fruit makes the announcement. When God blesses a chosen one with wealth, it is never meant to be a trophy. It is not given so you can decorate your life with luxury or prove your worth to people who never believed in you. Divine prosperity is not ornamental, it is instrumental. Wealth, in the hands of the chosen, becomes a kingdom assignment. God does not release abundance simply to elevate your lifestyle. He releases it to expand your assignment, increase your impact, and amplify your obedience. Your wealth is meant to flow, not sit. It is meant to heal, not boast. It is meant to build, not impress. Chosen ones understand that every dollar carries direction, every resource carries responsibility, every blessing carries a blueprint. Wealth becomes a spiritual tool, a way to uplift others, support God-inspired visions, break generational curses, and open doors for those who had none. And this is why God spent years shaping your spirit before placing abundance in your hands. He needed your heart clean. He needed your motives pure. He needed your priorities aligned. Because money in the wrong hands becomes a weapon of destruction, but money in the right hands becomes a weapon of restoration. When God blesses you, He expects you to steward, not show off. To be a vessel, not a spotlight. To be a distributor, not a collector. The world will see wealth as status, but heaven sees wealth as assignment. You were chosen to carry provision with humility, wisdom, and grace. To let your generosity speak louder than your possessions. To let your stewardship shine brighter than your success. A chosen one's greatest display of prosperity is not what they wear, post, or purchase. It is what they build, what they heal, and what they give. This is your mantle. This is your mission, and heaven is trusting you to carry it well. If this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, comment, "I receive my kingdom assignment," to seal it in faith. And make sure you subscribe, because your next chapter will require guidance, clarity, and divine confirmation, and I'm here to walk with you through every step of it. Your wealth is not random. Your rising is not accidental. You were chosen for this now. Step boldly into your calling.